So, Groww is heading to Dalal Street, and it's doing so as India's largest retail stockbroker by active traders. What began in 2016 as a project by 4 ex-Flipkart employees, Ishan Bansal, Harsh Jain, Lalit Keshre and Neeraj Singh, is today a breakout in India's fintech stack. And it has great backers, Peak 15, Ribbit and Satya Nadella. What is its not-so-secret sauce? A frictionless app, a sharp content strategy, and turning more and more young savers into investors. You know, who doesn't like How to Become a Millionaire for Dummies, right? So, its revenue jumped nearly fourfold from FY23 to FY25, even as 80% of that income came from broking. Now, ahead of its 6,600 crore rupees IPO, Groww is pushing into margin funding, loans against securities, and wealth management. The big challenges? Competition, breakneck evolution of tech, and most critically, a sharp regulatory eye on market speculators. So, is the Groww IPO the next big moment for Indian fintech in the public markets? Or is it another case of overvaluation that is not standing on strong enough legs? Let's find out with ET's in-house fintech expert, Pratik Bhakta. It's Thursday, the 6th of November. I'm Anirban Chowdhury. This is the Morning Brief. Hi Pratik, welcome to the Morning Brief. It's been a while, but always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here. Always excited.
Let's start with the origin story. It seems to be quite a standout case in Indian fintech, and no one better to tell me about Indian fintech than you. So why don't you tell me if you find it interesting and what do you find interesting about the founding story of Groww?
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think the way Groww started, it was fascinating in the way a bunch of Flipkart folks came out of Flipkart and Flipkart has been a breeding ground for a lot of startups, at least in Bangalore. So it was not very surprising when they came out and they said they wanted to do something in fintech. But what was surprising is they said they wanted to do something around investment stocks, mutual funds, at a time when Zerodha was already so big and it was already this larger than life kind of a figure, especially in Bangalore circles. So initially, everyone was a little bit skeptical if they'll be able to pull it off. But I think what also worked in Groww's favor is they were reaching out to investors. And investors also wanted a chunk of this market. Groww got backing from a few of the large major investors, Sequoia at that point in time, which is now Peak 15 partners. And they also raised subsequent rounds. Now focusing on how they wanted to execute, that's where I think all the 4 Groww founders stood out. And be it Lalit or Harsh, who are the more prominent faces of the brand, they were very clear right at the onset that we will focus on products, we will focus on the customer pain points, and we will try to solve it through technology. That is one. The other thing that also played really well in Groww's favor is the way they positioned themselves on social media. Groww focused on the video side of things and then started doing these interactive videos, short clips on YouTube, on other social media channels, and then they used those as their acquisition tool. And it has been successful. So look at their YouTube channel, which has now around 2.4 million subscribers. On an average, each of their short videos get around 25 to 40,000 views. And any investor in the market loves these kinds of content because it helps them take decisions on where they want to position themselves and how. So I think these are the 3-4 early things that Groww invested in, and that has helped build this brand and bring Groww to where it is currently.
But, you know, when they started, this was in 2016. I mean, the investor cohort at NSE, etc., was very low compared to now. So did they take time to sort of hit the sweet spot, but concentrated on creating awareness and their branding? And then, of course, once the investor numbers started growing, it was very smooth. Is that how it played out?
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. When they started, obviously, the number was much, much smaller. Today, the number is much bigger and Groww is the largest player in terms of active traders in the country. But if you think of it, this was when also pandemic happened, right? That time people had time. People who were making enough money, they wanted to test out the markets, and Groww was at the right place at the right time. And there was this entire thing about, Groww being very youth focused. So the young traders, they automatically got attracted to Groww. So yes, it's not been like a sudden rise, but it's been a consistent rise for Groww over these years. And it also maybe helped that there were macro factors that came in at this point in time, say for instance the pandemic, or also the overall growth of the Indian economy, and there was no large major crash. So all these factors helped Groww in their growth, and I believe that the founders also appreciate the fact that there were multiple external factors which helped them, not only internal ones.
Got it. You already mentioned some of the USPs, but if you could mention some differentiators also. I mean, you did in terms of their timing for funds, etc., etc. But you said Zerodha was a giant already. But in terms of product or their placement or how they sold it, what differentiated Groww?
I think what differentiated Groww was the product. Whoever you ask, they will say that the user interface of Groww is fantastic. It's been a remarkable success for them, the way they've managed to pull it off. And whoever you ask, depends on the investors, the people who took a bet on Groww at that point in time, they will all tell you that, the product stood out. I think that was one of the major factors that helped them, create a kind of niche. And eventually that niche kept on increasing, and it became very, very mainstream.
Got it. Let's come to the run-up to the IPO. I mean, clearly, as the CEO told you, the company was making too much money and, it could have chosen to keep all the money for itself and the founders and the management. But then, I mean, this was a good time to go to market. But before that, I mean, I think its revenue surged from 1,141 crore in FY23 to almost 4,000 crore in FY25. First of all, is this velocity even sustainable?
No, absolutely. That's a big question. And that's something that Groww has also been asked multiple times. And I think they're also cognizant of the fact that a large part of that growth was primarily driven by excessive speculative trading that India saw through the last 2.5 years. F&O trading is very high frequency trading. So that helps a broker make a lot of money. It's not that only Groww got its revenues pushed up so much. Even the large ones like Zerodha saw a surge in revenue. Angel One saw a surge in revenue. So did their profits go up. So yes, if it's sustainable, maybe that growth rate is not sustainable. But has Groww done something to ensure that the shocks do not kind of disrupt the core business? I would say yes. Because even if you go through their RHP, even at this point in time, they get around 80% of their revenues from broking, which is only one single business. They have so many other businesses. For instance, mutual fund investments. For instance, the AMC. For instance, lending. These are so small that 80% of the revenue comes from broking. So that's a major question mark for Groww. And that's something that the management understands and appreciates. And they're also trying to double down on those other services. And if you say that, yes, the restrictions on F&O, that had a direct impact on Groww's business as well. For instance, if you look at their broking transacting numbers on a quarterly basis, that has come down to 6 million in June quarter 2025 compared to 7 million a year back. So there has been impact. Even derivative traders, for instance, they are at around 1.4 million now compared to almost 1.9 million a year back, or perhaps even more. So yes, is it sustainable? There will be challenges. But is the management doing something to ensure that it doesn't crash? Absolutely true. They have invested in ancillary services, businesses. They have taken regulatory licenses. For instance, Groww has an NBFC license. So they are getting into margin trade funding, which is a good business opportunity. They also have AMC license, which they acquired through the acquisition of India Bulls. So which is on the manufacturing side. So yes, they have diversified their business, and hopefully those businesses start firing and the overall revenue doesn't remain so skewed towards broking only.
Got it. Let's talk about challenges outside of the math, outside of the revenue streams, like the regulatory glare on speculators, etc. The opportunity I know is huge. It's a 1.1 trillion market opportunity, and that was clearly mentioned in the RHP as well. But then, why don't you talk about some of the other challenges?
Yeah, I think that's a very big thing that Groww has to deal with. See, one of the major challenges that any startup in the broking space or any stockbroker faces is number one, the macroeconomic challenges. Any downturn in the market will have a direct impact on the broker's business. So that is a major risk factor that any stockbroker carries. Number two is tech and software. the broking business is extremely heavily dependent on technology. If the system goes down, business gets directly impacted. And we've seen that happen a lot. While Groww has had fewer instances, it has had its own share. In the RHP also, they have mentioned tech and software as one of their major vulnerability points. But they've also said that they spend around 27% of their overall expenses in technology to ensure that those shocks can be mitigated. For instance, in the June quarter only, they've spent around rupees 104 crore in technology. Third, again, one of the big risk factors that Groww has highlighted is, of course, excessive reliance on broking. 80% of Groww's revenues are coming from broking, which is again one of the major risks. And finally, one of the last but one of the biggest risks to their business is regulatory restrictions. We have already seen that happen around F&O clampdown that impacted brokers' revenues. While Lalit was telling me that the impact has not been that big on Groww because of their ancillary businesses also coming in, but the overall market has seen around 30 to 40% of an impact on their top lines. And what we understand is SEBI is looking at it very, very closely to ensure that excessive speculation in the stock markets gets clamped down and this is an over a period of time kind of a thing. So these are the 3-4 major risks that Groww is carrying on its books.
Now, valuation. We've had, recently one company which was widely criticized for being overvalued. Groww's valuation is pretty high too. In fact, that is a question you put to the CEO. How is it different? Is this one justified? Will investors be kind to it? What do you think?
See, on that bit, your guess is as good as mine. I don't know how investors will react. The IPO has just started today, so let's see how things pan out. But I'll draw your attention towards certain points that Lalit told me about Groww's business and the factors which led them to decide on the pricing. The first thing that he spoke about is obviously when they were pricing, they were benchmarking Groww against broking peers, right? Be it Angel One, be it others, like I mentioned. But he was saying that this should not be the only lens of looking at Groww. So Groww is also trying to position itself as a consumer app. So they are benchmarking themselves against other consumer economy players who have either gone public already or have been valued in the private markets accordingly. So that is another factor that they have looked at. The third is core technology company. So they are seeking this valuation multiple, putting forth their core technology play. So these are the 3-4 things that help them decide on their valuation. The other ancillary things that also Lalit spoke about is branding. There are 14 million people using it, 18 million registered users. So it's a huge ecosystem who's already in touch, who already know how Groww feels like. What is the app? How good is it? Who are the founders, etc., etc. So they are bullish that community will be excited about a Groww investment. The other interesting thing that Lalit also spoke about is capabilities of scale. So he's saying the kind of investments they have made into technology, from this 18 million, if they are increasing their user base to maybe 20 million, 25 million, 30 million, 40 million tomorrow over the years to come, the incremental investments in technology will not be proportionately high. They do not use large branch network to kind of acquire customers. So that is something that he is focusing on. And finally, of course, in terms of management capabilities, the founders are saying that, we've done it this much, we've kind of disrupted the market. So there should be some kind of a, valuation multiple attached to that as well. Now, whether the market will appreciate all these is up to the market. But this has been the commentary, or this has been the viewpoint of the management. And that is something that I have gathered from my conversations with the company.
Understood. And finally, Pratik, what lies ahead? You spoke about diversification. Tell me about new products, new segments, are acquisitions on the cards?
I think that's where a very interesting point lies. Because having seen Groww over so many years and having closely tracked the company, I knew that Groww had a certain strategy or a business plan, and that business plan has changed over time. And that is the nimbleness of the company as well. For instance, Groww was trying to build a neobank at some point in time. They had hired a very senior banker also to lead the initiative. They have given up on it. Now they're completely focused around wealth management, broking, wealth management, mutual funds, other investment products, everything. And all the other ancillary businesses that they had built, all of them will focus on helping the broking ecosystem grow, helping the wealth management ecosystem grow. So that has been a change in shift in stance for the Groww management, and they want to double down on that in the subsequent years. For instance, Groww also has a payment aggregator license. but it is not using that payment aggregator license to go out and offer payment products to other companies. It is primarily using it for internal processes. So that is also an interesting shift. What I've understood from my conversations with multiple people in the management in Groww is their focus will continue to be wealth management. The excessive focus on broking needs to be reduced. Wealth management is a more diversified play, senior customers, good quality customers. And in fact, that's an important point that I should mention here. They have around 230,000 affluent users on the platform. But 230,000 out of their 14 million, 13 million, 13.9, 14 million users are affluent users with assets of more than rupees 25 lakhs, which is not a matter of joke. And that base is growing very fast. So these are interesting sectors in the market or segments in the market that Groww is carving out and they're planning to go after. Now, whether they will succeed, we don't know. But whether the plan is there, yes, of course.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Pratik, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure always, as usual.
Groww's IPO does mark a turning point, from private unicorn to publicly accountable financial institution. Whether it can maintain its insane revenue run rate depends on, number one, building a broader revenue mix beyond broking. Number two, dealing with terse regulatory shifts that have already shaken parts of the industry. We make so much money, we could keep it all, Groww's CEO Lalit told Pratik in the recent interview that we spoke about, and then added, but that's not how you build a 100-year-old company. The listing is a test of that ambition, and the markets, as always, will have the final word. That's it for today. You were listening to this episode of The Morning Brief. It was produced by me and Vinay Joshi, sound designed by Indranil Bhattacharjee. A new episode of The Morning Brief drops every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday on a listening platform of your choice. Also, don't miss our brand new show, Corner Office Conversation, where we talk to the most interesting business and thought leaders from India and the world. Stay tuned in.